Right now in 2026, there are only 39 to 41 vape products in the entire United States legally authorized for sale. Walk into almost any vape shop in America and ask for the best-selling brand by name. And there's a real chance what they hand you is illegal, not shady, not a legal gray area, actually illegal. And the federal government just allocated $200 million specifically to seize and destroy it. Okay, so you want to own a vape shop, a loyal customer base that visits weekly, e-liquid margins that would make most retailers jealous, a product category still growing fast. Here's what that picture doesn't show you. The single most popular products in this entire industry, the ones customers walk in and ask for by name, are, almost across the board, not legally authorized to be sold at all. A wave of federal enforcement that has already sent warning letters to hundreds of retailers, with penalties reaching over $20,000 per store for repeat violations. And a fundamental business dilemma almost nobody outside this industry talks about. Stock what your customers actually want, and you're running a legal risk that grows every single year. Or stock only what's authorized, and you're selling a product lineup most of your customers don't recognize and won't buy. Owning a vape shop looks like a straightforward, high-margin retail business riding a growing trend. It's actually one of the most legally precarious retail categories in the country, built on a supply chain the federal government has explicitly declared illegal and is now actively working to physically destroy. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why and what it actually takes to run one of these stores without it eventually catching up to you. Before the numbers, a fast note on the shape of this industry. There's the independent single-location vape shop, the classic version most owners actually run. There's the hybrid smoke shop, selling vape products alongside other tobacco and accessory categories to diversify revenue. And there's the online-only retailer, lower overhead but facing the exact same federal authorization rules, plus payment processing restrictions that brick-and-mortar stores don't deal with as severely. This script focuses on the independent single-location shop, because that's where this industry's central tension plays out most directly. The startup cost, and it's a genuinely wide range depending on ambition. A lean setup can launch for around $25,000, while a fully built-out shop with a real retail build-out, inventory depth, and working capital reserves can run as high as $200,000, with most realistic operations landing somewhere between $30,000 and $120,000 in upfront capital, plus another $36,000 to $240,000 in working capital reserves to survive the early months. Add your tobacco retail license, running anywhere from $300 to $1,500 annually, depending on your state. And your compliance and licensing renewals alone commonly run another $100 to $500 a month once you factor in FDA registration maintenance and local reporting requirements. Here's the regulatory reality that sits underneath every single one of those numbers, and it's the part of this business almost no first-time owner fully understands before they sign a lease. Every vape product sold in the United States is legally required to go through the FDA's pre-market tobacco product application process before it can be sold at all. As of early 2026, the FDA has authorized only 39 tobacco-flavored and menthol-flavored e-cigarette products. Total, nationwide no-flavored disposable vapes, no fruit-flavored e-liquids, and no open-system devices have received authorization. And here's the problem. The dominant disposable brands driving foot traffic into vape shops across the country right now, names like Geek Bar, Elf Bar, and Lost Mary, are not on that authorized list. They're Chinese-manufactured products that have never received FDA approval. And industry data shows most walk-in customers ask for these brands specifically by name, not by category. A shop that only stocks fully authorized products is stocking a product lineup most of its customer base won't recognize, and frankly, won't buy. The operating costs, and here's where the regulatory pressure shows up directly on your monthly expense sheet. Insurance runs $150 to $500 a month. meaningfully higher than typical retail because of product-related liability risk. Because mainstream payment processors like Square, Stripe, and PayPal routinely terminate merchant accounts tied to vape sales, most shops are forced onto specialty high-risk payment processors charging 3.5% to 5% per transaction. Well above the roughly 2 to 3% a typical retailer pays. A quiet but real tax on every single card swipe in your store. Add ongoing marketing, $500 to $2,500 a month, given how restricted your advertising options are on mainstream platforms, and rent, staffing, and standard retail overhead on top of all of that. The revenue model and the margins really are strong when the product mix works. E-liquids, which typically account for around 60% of a vape shop's total revenue, carry gross margins as high as 200 to 400%, genuinely extraordinary numbers for physical retail. Hardware and accessories run a more modest 30 to 50% margin, but anchor the customer relationship through repeat coil and pod purchases. Disposables drive the most walk and foot traffic of any category, precisely because they're the easiest entry point for a customer, and precisely because they're the category with the deepest unauthorized product problem. A mature, well-established vape shop commonly generates $300,000 to $600,000 in annual revenue, with overall blended net profit margins landing somewhere between 7 and 20% once you account for the full weight of compliance costs, high-risk payment processing, and insurance. Let's build a realistic scenario. A shop doing $400,000 a year at a healthy 14% net margin clears $56,000 in owner profit, a real but modest return once every layer of this industry's unique overhead is accounted for. Now here's the risk that's been escalating year over year, and it's not theoretical. It's actively happening in waves right now. The FDA has run repeated nationwide enforcement sweeps against retailers selling unauthorized products. In one single action, the agency issued warning letters to 189 retailers in a single sweep specifically targeting Elf Bar and Escobar sales. In another, 115 brick-and-mortar stores across cities from Denver to Baltimore were warned in a single batch. Retailers who don't correct the violation after a warning letter face civil money penalties. In one documented enforcement round, the FDA sought over $20,000 from each of 8 retailers who'd already been warned and failed to comply. And the enforcement has moved well beyond letters. In October 2024, federal agents executed a $76 million seizure operation across multiple states. And in April 2025, the Supreme Court confirmed the FDA's authority to reject flavored e-cigarette applications outright, closing off any hope that the current wave of popular disposables might eventually get retroactively approved. For 2026, the U.S. Senate Committee on Appropriations directed the FDA to allocate $200 million specifically for enforcement against illegal vapes, funding that gives federal agencies the explicit authority to seize and physically destroy unauthorized shipments before they ever reach a store shelf at all. This creates a genuinely uncomfortable structural bind for every single shop owner in this industry, and it's worth sitting with for a second. If you stock only the 39 FDA-authorized products, you're selling a lineup most of your walk-in customers have never heard of, in flavors tobacco and menthol only, that a huge share of the vaping public has already moved away from. Your foot traffic and revenue suffer directly. If you stock what your customers actually ask for by name, the geek bars, the elf bars, the Lost Marys driving the sales your business depends on, you're running a compliance risk that grows every single enforcement cycle, with warning letters, civil penalties, and now outright seizure sitting at the end of that road. There is no clean, easy answer inside this business right now, and that tension alone is enough to end plenty of shops that never see a single customer complaint or a slow month. So who actually survives and builds something durable in this business? Almost never the shop leaning entirely on the newest, flashiest, unauthorized disposable brand chasing the fastest foot traffic. Because that's precisely the inventory federal enforcement is targeting hardest right now. The operators building something that lasts are the ones diversifying deliberately, leaning harder into authorized nicotine products and adjacent categories like CBD and wellness products, where the regulatory ground is more stable. Building loyalty programs and subscription-style coil and pod replenishment that don't depend on any single disposable brand staying available, and treating compliance monitoring as a genuine, ongoing operational discipline rather than something to worry about only after a warning letter arrives. Reduced competition from enforcement sweeping out non-compliant operators could, over time, actually push prices and margins higher for the shops still standing. But that's a benefit that accrues specifically to operators who survive the enforcement wave, not the ones caught inside it. Let's put real numbers next to two scenarios for our $400,000 shop. The good year: stable supplier relationships, a product mix increasingly weighted toward authorized products and high-margin accessories, no enforcement action, and steady foot traffic. Revenue holds at $400,000, and with well-controlled compliance and processing costs, your net margin reaches 16%. Net profit for the year: $64,000, a genuinely solid result. The bad year: your shop receives an FDA warning letter after an inspection identifies unauthorized disposable brands on your shelves, the same brands responsible for a meaningful share of your foot traffic. You pull the inventory immediately, eating an $18,000 loss on unsellable stock, and revenue drops sharply as regular customers who came in specifically for those brands stop visiting as often, falling to $310,000 for the year. Legal consultation to review your full compliance program and prevent a repeat violation costs another $12,000. And your net margin, squeezed by the lost inventory and lower sales volume spread across the same fixed overhead, falls to just 6%. Net profit for the year: roughly $18,600. A genuine collapse from the year before, and that's the good version of a bad year. A second violation after a documented warning risks a civil penalty north of $20,000 on top of everything else. The swing between those 2 years is over $45,000. And it didn't come from a slow season or a new competitor down the street. It came from stocking exactly the products your own customers were asking for by name. So does owning a vape shop make sense? The honest answer is that the underlying retail economics, when the product mix is clean, are genuinely strong, extraordinary margins on e-liquids, a loyal repeat customer base. Real growth in a category the CDC estimates covers 7% of American adults. But this is an industry where the products actually driving the most foot traffic are right now, in 2026, largely unauthorized, and where federal enforcement has moved from occasional warning letters to a $200 million dedicated budget for physically seizing and destroying exactly that inventory. The operators who build something that lasts here are the ones who stopped chasing whatever disposable brand is trending this month and started building a business around the 39 products, and whatever narrow list follows them, that are actually legally allowed to exist. The dream of the high-margin vape shop with a loyal weekly customer base is real, and plenty of well-run. Compliance-focused shops genuinely build that. The ground underneath the fastest-growing, highest-traffic version of this business is shifting in real time, enforced by an agency with a 9-figure budget specifically built to close it down. And the owners who last are the ones who understood, before they stocked that first case of the brand everyone was asking for, that they weren't really running a vape shop. They were running a business balanced directly on top of a list the federal government controls and shrinks, one enforcement action at a time.